Morning, Jamie. We're here poolside in Vegas. How are things back in the northern tundra, the non 42 degrees Celsius part of the continent? How are we doing there?
Not too bad. It's good situation. I'm trying to wind down. I'm back from the finals and all of that fun stuff. So it's it's now the cup's been handed out. It's moving forward. I'd much rather be where you are, but I do have air conditioning, so I'm happy about that.
That's fair.
Yeah.
The final, when you look back at it, will that be in your mind a classic for the ages? Will it, like, we don't get to see Game 7 very often to begin with in a Stanley Cup final. We hadn't seen a team come back from 3-0 forever. I mean, is this just one that you'll never forget being around, covering, watching?
Yeah, I mean, it was very unique. The unfortunate part is, 10 years from now, it'll be like, hey, Edmonton lost in the finals. Sometimes you don't remember the pathway. It was like Game 7. Like, I'll remember it because I was there and covering it and all of that. But, when you look at the list of cup winners, it's not going to go, oh, they won in Game 7 after they crapped away a 3-0 lead. Like, there's no context to the storyline. It's Florida won, Edmonton lost.
Yeah.
But Edmonton had a good push. I think they're a very good team, and it showed how close they can be and are.
Yeah.
Now, they got lots of question marks there, but every team does. But I think, when you look at it, every year they've kind of inched forward. The last 3 years, they've lost to the Cup champion. So it shows that, they pretty darn good teams have to beat them. And, they consider themselves pretty good team as well. So, I was on the ice and talking to some of the guys, the Sam Bennett's and Carter Verhaeghe and guys like that. And I asked them, did last year's disappointment help you with this year? And they basically flat out said yes.
Yeah.
They said, we knew what to expect. We know how hard it is to win 4 games. So, at the end of the day, it's for me, I think I look at Edmonton as a team that, is going to be a top 5 team next year. I think there's guys that are probably going to take a step back, and maybe McDavid, if he has surgery or something like that. Like, they're not going to, I don't think they'll win the league next year, but I think they'll be a playoff team and then push for the cup again. But, lots of potential change there, but also they've got the spine of a team there. They've got their starting goaltender. They got their number 1 defenseman in Bouchard and Ekholm with a pairing, I guess, call it. And you got the forwards. And regardless of the Draisaitl situation, you've got him under contract for another year. You've got Zach Hyman. You've got RNH. Evander Kane, I don't know if he's going to have surgery and probably need a little bit of time, but the spine of the team is returning. Now you just got to figure out kind of filling out the outside edges.
Yeah, it's depth pieces. And you're right. Like, it's cruel off the top. Outside of Calgary, no one talks about an 0-4 loser in a 7-game series. It's just a footnote. But in the one market, you're like, man, that no one will remember that ride. But that's how the cruel nature of sport. And I'll say this. If the Oilers can become a championship team, they'll point to that. Just like we heard Gretzky pointing to the Islanders and walking by their open locker room door with the ice bags, the mythology around the Oilers dynasty, having to watch what the Islanders did and learn from losing to them. But then the other side is, if this really does have a house of cards potential, if they don't win next year, well, now you're into a Bouchard theoretical arbitration case, which is insane because he's probably a 100-point defenseman. Like, why wouldn't he get Erik Karlsson money from an arbitrator? Right. And then you're also in a spot where Leon Draisaitl can say, yeah, I think I'm worth 15. And I don't know that as the cap continues to rise on any sort of deal with term that isn't fair. And so if they don't win, that's almost like, it feels like next year is the whole pivot point of how you felt about the McDavid era in Edmonton, because it might end in 2 years, or it could be last year was the beginning of this dynastic type club. Like, it really is that fickle, isn't it?
It is. It's very close, and you've got to figure out what the players want, what the management situation. I thought Draisaitl handled himself fine yesterday with his comments.
He said all the right things.
Yeah, he did. And, people are trying to read the lines. Like, they're 2 days removed from losing the Cup final. You got to let them breathe a little bit. One thing I would say, and I'm not going to steal it as my own, but Craig Button, I thought he had an unbelievable comment last night on our station saying, if you earmark whatever number for Draisaitl, let's say it's the discount's 14. we'll call it, something like that, 14 and change. And McDavid gets 16, in his next deal. That's $30 million. The cap's going to be 100. He goes, you can build a pretty darn good team at 100 million with 70 million left over. You're right. Bouchard might chew 11 of that. Yeah. But, this is where you need to have value contracts where RNH is at 5 million. Evander Kane's at 5 million. Zach Hyman's at 5 million. They might have to do something with the Darnell Nurse deal that would free up, some money. But I don't think it's like, people pointing to it saying like, well, there's no way they can make it work. I disagree with that because the cap is going up. What you do need to do is manage your team properly. You're right. Yeah. Skinner's going to need a new contract. Bouchard's going to need a new contract. You're right. But, maybe those are bridge situations like Skinner's is another bridge, or maybe it's a 4-year or 5-year at 6. Like you can manage these deals. And the other thing I wanted to point out, and maybe you could weigh in on it because it's important, is you might be able to get some really good players on value contracts because guys may go, that team's close. I want to win.
Yeah.
So you might get a guy that signs the Max Domi / Tyler Bertuzzi contracts on a 1-year, not a ton of money going, we're good players, but we want a piece of that because we think they're close. So, that might factor in the next couple years when they start to do the cap gymnastics.
It should factor in, and I think it should have factored in more, to be honest. I haven't seen a lot of guys going to Edmonton on short-term deals to go play with Connor, and I think you should have. And even when Connor Brown did, he got handsomely paid a $3.25 million bonus just to get to 10 games. I mean, that's not a value 1-year deal. That's pretty much when they've brought guys in, they've had to pay the full freight. It wasn't like Hyman took a deal. That was the most money on the table. Great signing. But everyone's like, I'll go, but I need to get market. Does that change now because they were a game short? We'll see. It hasn't happened yet, to be fair, but they also hadn't been this far.
Right. And I think now that people realize like they're that close or closer, like say, we'll call it, you could argue that some of these teams that they went through, like Vancouver, you get Demko, like, Vancouver is right there knocking at the door, right? I think Vegas might have a retool. Although personally, I think Vegas might take a step back. I think that they've played so many cap gymnastics here, and they're going to have to walk away from Marcia. So they might have to walk away from some guys. They might have to trade. You keep hearing that Pietrangelo's available. Now all of a sudden that breaks up like their amazing defensive core. Their goaltenders are what they are. Like I think Vegas might come back down to earth a little bit before they go back north. Dallas, same thing. Dallas is a great team and just more with experience with those young guys. But keep in mind, that's another year of service on Jamie Benn. Another, Joe Pavelski's gone. Another year of service on Tyler Seguin. Those are guys that, long in the tooth where they were really good this year in their defined roles. Now, Jim Nill is an unbelievable GM. I'm sure he's going to be able to fill that out, no problem. But there's no guarantee that all of these top tier teams, including the Edmonton Oilers, get right back to where they were because there's other teams around them that are getting better or at least growing to get better.
Yeah, we looked at the beginning of the playoff bracket and you're like, there's 12 teams that could win this thing. Like Washington can't, the Islanders can't, probably not Nashville, and everyone else. You're like, yeah, why not? Like maybe LA does get their shit. Like it's really hard. And so it's easy we'll be back. But, as Rhett always tells us on this show, you think, especially when it happens early in your career, we'll just be back in the final again. And you might not. It might take a decade. It might be in a different locale by the time you're there. Who's going to run this Edmonton team? Ken Holland today, making it official that he's not returning. He wasn't at the draft. His contract's up. It's been long speculated that he was going to walk at the end of the year. And I think the only fly in the ointment was they nearly won the cup. And they're like, okay, well, maybe we will leave room for you to come back. But it just felt like it wasn't going to be a fit moving forward, or because it never really got any momentum that he was coming back. So you have Connor's old agent's the president, but does he want to be a GM? Does he hire a GM? When do we do this? This is the most important piece we just talked about. It's managing all these potential free agents and contracts coming up, and we don't know who's going to do it.
Yeah, I do believe, just from, and this is not in the know, but more reading the tea leaves, is like don't you think it's going to be somebody from Jeff Jackson's past or in his orbit, somewhere where
the coach was, right?
Yeah, like he just, listen, he was an agent. He knows a lot of people. I guarantee you there's, managers out there that he trusts. I think the biggest thing that they would need is somebody on the same page. I always got the sense that Ken Holland wasn't maybe on the same page as them. He executed some of the things they wanted.
Yeah.
But I think, Ken Holland's history, he never fired coaches. And all of a sudden he fires, Jay Woodcroft. That might have come from above.
That's the impression I got. Yeah, that wasn't his call. And then they hired the new coach, and Kenny didn't even hire him. It was clearly the guy above him hiring. I mean,
So I would argue that Kenny, they probably have a succession plan in place already, but you do need more bodies. I don't know who that is. Does Paul Coffey want to continue to coach, or does he want to go back to right beside Daryl Cates as a senior advisor? There's lots of question marks. I think this ride, that's why, I find it tough 2-3 days after to talk about stuff, because I think these guys just want to breathe a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, I know if you're the Edmonton Oilers organization, you can't. You're on a jet. You're into draft mode and signing guys. Like, you can't tell a guy July 1st, hey, we were just in a cup final last week. Can you let me breathe? Give me a couple days to get my act together. Like, you've got to be organized and know. The other thing, like Keith Gretzky's there, and he's really really thought of in the hockey circles as a really smart hockey guy. I don't know if maybe he's in the mix to kind of.
He was a candidate 5 years ago, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there was the whole self-made man Keith Gretzky thing, which I get it. He's probably very good, but I'd never heard his name in other GM circles in other markets. So that's sort of the.
It's funny because I never thought about it until it was brought up to me last week in Florida, just in passing with some hockey people. They're like, that guy's really sharp. And I was like, okay, that's, it's good to know. You're right. He's not just Wayne Gretzky's brother. Like, he's Keith. He's worked hard. He's, kind of earned his stripes. Like, if he ends up being aligned with the current management group, he might be a guy that gets a peek at it. I don't know, because they might keep it internal and just elevate him. He might have been the guy who's handling the day-to-day of some stuff anyways, right? Like, managers delegate. Mm-hmm. So I'm not in the know. I just kind of thought of that instantaneously as we were talking, but it wouldn't surprise me if they brought in a veteran GM as well, somebody that they have crossed paths with or knows the market. But you have to be careful with this one, because you're right. You were talking about there's some big decisions to be made in the next couple of years on the top players, and you can't screw that up.
Last bit on Edmonton, we'll keep moving, because I know the Oilers honks that hang out in our comments will be talking about the Oiler Hour, and the people that are Flames fans will say, stop talking about the Oilers. We can't win here. Mark Hunter's name has popped up. Is that a fit in your mind?
I would say yes. And the reason being is first of all, he's an unbelievable talent evaluator.
Yeah.
Like, you hear about his draft and what they put together, that program in London is top notch. It's an NHL team in a junior league. Now it's funny. They're known to kind of run in those gray areas too, where this player just magically appeared as a London Knight. Like, okay, this, they drafted him seventh round or something, whatever it is in the OHL draft. But I've heard a lot of people at rumblings in Toronto, that was a crossroads for the Toronto Maple Leafs. They chose Kyle Dubas over Mark Hunter, and there's a lot of people that wanted Hunter. So it wouldn't surprise me, because he's a really, really smart hockey guy. The only thing that I would argue in a Canadian market, and not even argue, I think he's smart. He's not a visible guy. He doesn't care to be in front of the camera. He doesn't care to be a lot like Ken Holland. Ken Holland's a really good guy in front of the camera and all that, but he doesn't, Ken Holland doesn't have social media. He doesn't care about what people are saying. He just kind of does his job. Mark Hunter would be kind of cut out of that cloth. In Canadian markets, I always feel like you need a visible GM, somebody who is, can have a pulse of the market and handle it well. I don't know if Mark would be a great visible GM, but I think he would be a great GM.
Okay. We'll move to another GM we mentioned a moment ago. Jim Nill has bought out Ryan Suter. He's got some of that unbelievable rare air of the double buyout money coming at him. He's going to be paid for 2 teams next year to not play hockey, and he might even find a third to pay him to play hockey. We can joke about his situation. Multiple buyouts at the same time. Like, that's some good eating right there. But for Dallas, it was clear that he wasn't able to help move the needle in a net positive way anymore. They do have some young defensemen that they want to get in the mix. They are trying to get Chris Tanev done. Is this a sign for you that they're trying to keep Tanev at any cost, that they'll even pay Suter to go away kind of thing?
I do believe that. I do believe that they're trying to keep Chris Tanev in a situation where, and apparently there's no secret. There's a lot of teams that are interested in him. It might be a term situation as opposed to money. You might see Chris Tanev get a 6 or 7 year deal at 34 years old, where they know that the last couple of years with the mileage on his body might be throwaway.
LTIR.
But at the end of the day, that's not their concern. Their concern is to get the player at a reasonable AAV. I know for a fact that there's a lot of teams that want Tanev, a right shot defense. You saw what DeMello got. So DeMello sets the bar. Now, I always say this, the Winnipeg tax, the Edmonton tax, the Ottawa tax, some of these markets that may not be the sexiest places to live might have to pay a little bit more. I thought that with DeMello, but DeMello's a real good fit with Josh Morrissey too.
Yeah.
So, I think it was comfortable for both sides. But where I'm going with DeMello is, what does that make for Chris Tanev's market? What does that make for Brett Pesce and, all these right shot defensemen, Matt Roy. Does that make them above DeMello, below DeMello? Like it kind of, I think right shot defensemen are at a premium right now. So it's not going to put it this way. That contract is not hurting Chris Tanev's negotiation. Put it that way.
Yeah, that's fair. And you know what? If you told me you get a top pairing guy at that number, I'd say that's great. It's just that he's more of a fit with Morrissey than he's a standalone top pair guy. I think that's a great deal for both sides. And, someone that plays as well as he does with Morrissey, like, you don't want to lose that to try to save $500,000. Saw Brad Treliving last night at a steakhouse. He's got his hands full. He's already playing the don't trust everything you hear in the media. We got a lot of work to do. We love Mitch Marner. I mean, we're in full PR mode already here, but it is a pretty crucial offseason for him, given that it's the walk year for Marner, who holds all the cards of the no move. And that I think you heard from everyone north of Brad Treliving in the organization, be it Shanahan and, Keith Pelly, the new boss man, that it's just what's happened hasn't been acceptable. 100-point regular seasons, who cares? It's time to win. And you didn't really take a lot of reading between the lines to figure out that if they could move Mitch Marner, they could augment the roster in a way that they'd like to. He's got all the cards. They'd rather move on. This is quite the little dance that the team and the player have to do here.
Well, and the problem is, Tree, I know Tree. They're probably trying to do a bunch of work behind the scenes, but all of a sudden they're just putting out fires out front of it because no information, no news is not good news. It just leads to people going, well, this is what I hear. This is what they should do. So every day they're dealing with another mess because they're having to talk about, well, that's not true. We didn't say this. We didn't do that. We don't believe this. Craig Berube's, I think, gone on record, say he'd like to coach Mitch Marner, believes he can get the most out of him. Why wouldn't you? Mitch Marner's close to a 100-point player. He's a top-tier player. Can you get something different from him? I think the bigger question is, you've got to get on the same page if you're Mitch Marner's camp and you're the Toronto Maple Leafs and go, what do we want to do? What's best for Mitch Marner? What's best for the Toronto Maple Leafs? Do they align? And if they don't align, what is a solution that makes everybody smell like roses coming out of this? Because that's the biggest challenge. And I'm saying easier said than done, because I just don't know if that solution is there. It just for me, it's going to be a spicy meatball, because if Mitch just goes, I want to get 100 points, play with Austin Matthews next year, and then I'll figure out my contract. Now, David Pastrnak played through a UFA season. Sam Reinhart just played through a UFA season. The difference is this marketplace, and maybe like you said, the way the team is lost and the way the team is constructed. If they identify that's the problem, they can't have 4 guys that make all the money. Then you've got to figure something out if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs.
That is the difference. Everyone wanted Pastrnak back. Everyone, would love to have Sam Reinhart back if you're a Panther. Nicely done. That doesn't seem to be the vibes around the Leafs organization with Marner. Okay, let's get to some other crazy stuff. I'm Jonathan Marchessault, Steven Stamkos. Like, these are guys, when we think of them, we think of one jersey, one market. Now, Marchessault moved around a bit, but he's one of the original Golden Knights, the Misfits. Those are just a couple of the really high-profile names in free agency. Are we actually at the point where Steven Stamkos could not be a Tampa Bay Lightning?
I would say yes, but I would also I'll see it I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah,
because Tampa Bay is one of the original, like, hey, we can figure out this CBA type of thing and we can figure this all out. I talked about giving term to guys to maybe bring that AAV down. That seems like a prime example for Steven Stamkos to go, you're going to be 34, coming 35 in February.
Yeah.
Let's give you 6 years at 7 or something, walk you right to 40 years old.
Yeah, go to $5 million. Sure.
Yeah. And we'll give you, we'll put in another, we'll put in 30 or to 40 million in your pocket, but you're going to retire a Lightning player right into the organization. And like, to me, I think there is a common sense solution to it. Now, if he wants 8 or 9 as a 40 goal scorer, then they might have to get creative. I just don't see them going, yeah, we can't fit you in. Sorry. Like, we had to give Brandon Hagel $6 million. Like, I feel like I think there's a solution there. I just don't know it. And I don't have the magic recipe to make it happen. But, a lot of guys are getting money on that team now, but there is a structure there. It's not like, it's not like they're paying guys 13 and 14. It's 9.5, it's 9.3. Like,
yeah,
I think it's manageable. I really do. It just depends on what does he want, because he's not going to Utah for $10 million a year just to make $10 million a year. Like, you don't you think he wants a chance to win somewhere?
Yeah, totally. And I think history is an important part of this as well. What happened last time Steven Stamkos was a free agent? Everyone thought he was gone. He was touring other cities. And what happened? Tampa, playing hardball, got the deal they wanted. They just had to really wait till 11:59 or whatever. So why are we surprised that the same playbook's being used here? Julian Brisebois was, riding shotgun for that last one. Like, we shouldn't be surprised by this, should we?
No, and also Steven's at a different point in his career now, right? Like, that's the other thing. He's 34 years old. Like, do you get paid for 34? I'm sorry. Do you get paid for 40 goals of what you did last year, or do you get paid for your age and what you might do in the next 3 to 5 years? Right. So that's where the interesting part is. You've got to marry the two. Now, he might be a 40 goal scorer next year, and then it drops to 32 and then 28 or whatever. Gone are the days at 31 and 32. You're getting paid for what you did at 25. That was my era. That's not the case anymore. They're paying guys for what they believe they're going to do the next 6 to 8 years. So that's kind of what's flipped. I don't know what the formula is going to be there, but I think it'll be interesting to see what happens in Tampa. But my gut tells me he's staying, but I have no fact with that. No back.
I'm with you. Like, it's just he was a billboard before he played a game there in Tampa. Like, seeing Stamkos. Like, it was something about it wouldn't feel right if he wasn't there. But again, if I see it, I'll believe it. Okay, some other really interesting names. Gensel has got to have a huge number of suitors. We talked to Seravalli yesterday. Said that might be the biggest number of teams after one guy. Do you have a spot that you're like, ooh, that's the fit? When you look at what Jake Gensel can give a contending team, or someone that's a piece away, maybe.
So I thought he was a great fit in Carolina because they need high end finishers, right? I don't know if the number. I don't know if the rocket scientist there. What's his name?
Eric Tulsky.
Tulsky. If Tulsky will be able to, sort it out there. Well, he's got 38 degrees and,
no, he's got all those patents and copyrights. Has he patented the keep Gensel under $9 million on a long-term deal? We haven't seen that one yet. That's the patent he needs right now.
But him being linked to Vancouver is really interesting.
It is.
Because, they just flushed Mikheyev down the toilet there yesterday.
Yep.
And got Chicago to chew on his deal. And if you took Mikheyev out and added Gensel, you're onto something there. That's a hell of a team there, because Pettersson will be better at critical times next year. That Miller's really good. Like, they had the depth. That Dakota Joshua was a really nice player. Like, they've got some players there.
Yeah.
And if the goalie stays healthy, like, Vancouver can be a serious team. So I think Gensel would be a good fit, but if the number is just too high, then you might go, hey, we're going to try and get 40 goals out of 2 guys at 4.5 instead of 1 at $9 million type of thing. So it'll be interesting to see, but I think there would be, there'd be 7 or 8 suitors that go, we'll find a spot for you. Now, Utah, Anaheim, San Jose is trying to get players. Chicago, they'll throw a boatload at him. I don't know if he wants that at this stage of his career. If he's going strictly for money, he's going to get a massive number from some of those teams that have money to spend. Like, Utah has to spend money to get to the floor, like big money. And the same thing, like San Jose, Barclay Goodrow didn't want to waive to go to San Jose, so they
picked him up off waivers. Yeah,
picked up on waivers. You saw the trade with Jake Wallman. Like, San Jose's trying to make a move. So, I could see them trying to add like Gensels and stuff like that just to help their team get to the next level. Same thing with Chicago. Wouldn't Jake Gensel look nice playing with Connor Bedard?
Oh, yeah. Who wouldn't?
Exactly.
I mean, it's the Sam Reinhart thing. If he wants to chase the money, he can go to Chicago too. But these guys that have tasted winning and got close, I just don't see at this point of their careers that's necessarily the move. That's kind of the point you're making.
That's my point. You can go chase money, or you can chase a chance. So what does the chance look like? And what team has $9 million to go here? We'll find a spot. It looks like Vancouver cleared some money there.
Yeah.
So that looks like a natural fit. But things have gotten crazier. Like, I would love, what if he just goes, 1 year, $6 million, Edmonton, something crazy to play with McDavid on the left side.
That's some nightmare fuel for Calgarians. Thanks for that, Jamie. Appreciate that.
Well, I'm just saying, you're
right though.
But there might be something that we're not seeing, like that is right in front of us. But Gensel's going to get paid, and he's pretty much got his pick of the litter.
Detroit gave away Wallman with a second. That was surprising. That felt like a missed opportunity to get a later pick coming back to you, but it also felt like, okay, maybe they're trying to get something done quick here. There's no time to worry about a second here or a fifth there. We got something huge cooking. It does feel like not unlike some other teams we've noted, but for Detroit, it's like we're done the collecting young players. It's time to compete. They're in a tough division. I feel the same way about Buffalo. I feel similarly about Ottawa. I think you noted Utah's in a similar spot. We got all this money. We've been picking high forever. We got picks for days. Like, let's turn these into some today assets, not guys in 4 years that may or may not help. And a lot of those teams that pick in the top 15, I think Detroit's right at 15. Buffalo's at 12? New Jersey at 10. They're a team that doesn't need a prospect as much as they could use another impact roster player probably. Utah top 10, Ottawa top 10. I'm fascinated about this draft tomorrow and to see if maybe some of these picks are in play when usually we hum and haw and it doesn't happen. It feels like there's more fuel for it actually to go down this year.
I said this yesterday to one of our insiders, and I just said, like, does it feel different this year than it's felt the last couple of years? And the only thing that we can point to was the cup was handed out 2 days ago.
Yeah.
So everything feels rushed. It's like, okay, we're onto this thing, and now we got free agency on Monday. Like, I think everybody now there's Ottawa does that deal on Friday night, 12 minutes before puck drop. You're like, or Monday night, and you're like, where the hell did that come from? The league allowed a trade call on a game 7, and you're about to drop the puck. Which good on Ottawa, good on Boston. They've got to do business. But these other teams I feel like there's teams that are playing catch up where they're like, "Hey, we got to get this done." That speaks to that the cup should never be handed out on
It's too
June
late.
4th, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like this year, I say this every year, but I feel like all hell's going to break loose at this draft because there isn't McDavid or Matthews in this draft. Celebrini's a nice player, and it sounds like it's a deep draft from as far as prospects, but there's no generational player there. So now it's choosing the right guys for your fit for the future.
Yeah.
Because I would argue, I don't think 5 to 10 of these guys are going to step right in and play in the NHL next year. It's a draft and develop year. Good players, the Tej Ginlas of the world. But I think Tej will go back to junior for a year to grow his body and all of that. So my thought process is exactly what yours is. When you've got these teams that have been collecting picks and are trying to turn the corner, they can waive a top 7. Here's my 7th pick. Here's my 9th pick for a live roster player that a team needs to dump because they're trying to sign somebody else. So you can get a $6 million goal scorer from another team that is trying to get rid of that contract. The Mikheyev example, like Vancouver, he didn't work out there. He got injured. He's a guy who gets 500 breakaways a year and he scores on 3 of them. Like, it's just unfortunate. It's
Matthew Lombardi syndrome, right?
Yeah. But it just, what it is Chicago's like, we'll take him. We need to get we got money. And, this is a guy that's an experienced NHLer who's a pretty good, 20 goal scorer that we got for free, really. So I think that's where Utah, that's where you mentioned, Buffalo and Detroit and all of these teams that want to get to that next level. It's to hell with the draft and developing. We've been doing that for years. We need some live bodies right now and to make that happen.
You've been talking about the backlog on the left side of the Senators' blue line all year.
Yeah.
It can't go much longer now. This is Chychrun's walk year, if I'm correct. That feels like a big chip in play too.
I would be shocked if he's not traded or they make a decision on that left side, either him or Shabbat. Shabbat's got a long-term deal. Shabbat's a little bit older. But I just think Shabbat's got the roots there. I think they trust him. I would argue it's probably more, Chychrun is an easier deal to move.
With 1 year left.
He's a point producer. He's everything. I think he would be attractive to a lot of teams. So, if you're going to, in a perfect world, they're trading Chychrun for a younger Chris Tanev. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like that.
Right shot.
Right shot, stabilizing defenseman to play with Sanderson or Shabbat. Because they got Artem Zub there. They need one other guy. Yeah. And then, they've got this kid Clevin who's coming, Tyler Clevin. He's a really nice player. I think their defensive core is going to be fine. They got a kid named Jacob Bernard Docker who's a right-handed shot. But, if you added another top 4 right shot defenseman, then move Chychrun and or Shabbat out, I think you're in business there because that defensive core looked really nice. And then you've dealt with the goalie. Then you start dealing with the forward. I thought it was a sneaky move that they included Kastelik in that deal to Boston.
Okay.
He's a really nice player. He's big. He can skate. He can fight. He's a good 4th liner.
Yeah.
But what Ottawa needs is 4th line players that are veterans, like grizzled veterans, to help the young guys above them. So, you're looking at, I thought Derek Ryan and Sam Carrick and guys like that in Edmonton, that 4th line, they were grizzled. They knew how to play, right? You weren't, on a night where maybe it's a Tuesday night in November and you're trying to protect the lead, these guys won't fold. Where we've seen younger guys get overwhelmed by the situation. So I think Ottawa is on the right path to clearing some space, to getting some grizzled vets to help those young players get to the next level.
Yeah, and I guess we've sort of alluded to it, but we haven't talked about that Ullmark deal. You have to be happy that if you're, I think, a Senators supporter, because A, the price wasn't that high. B, the guy won the Vezina 2 years ago. You really didn't give up a lot. You didn't have to include number 7. I guess we're just seeing that the market isn't great for goalies, especially when they're 30 or older. The deal for Markstrom was panned in Calgary, but after seeing the Ullmark deal, you're like, shit, I think Connie did better than we thought.
Well, yeah. I mean, look at the amount of goalies that have moved already. We're not even to free agency. It's musical chairs. I think Markey was the guy that teams coveted the minute he went to New Jersey. The reason why Ullmark would have been, a 1A, 1B type of thing to Markey is because, Ullmark's younger and wanted probably an extension to go into place. And he had some certainty where he was to control. He had a 15 team no trade list. So, you get Ullmark. I'd be shocked if we don't hear on July 1st they've extended him for 5 years or whatever. I don't know what that number. I talk about the Ottawa tax. I don't know what that number will look like. Yeah. But if it's probably $6 million a year, something like that. Maybe 6.5, 7. I don't know what the number looks like. I'll be honest. But I think they sign him. They've got Anton Forsberg there already at 2.8, who can be a really good 1B because, Ullmark's not a 60-game starter. He's not.
No, he's never been. Yeah.
So he's good. You're looking at 50-30, which is fine because if both of those guys can do that, Ottawa needed to do something different in net from a visual dynamic, we can't bring that tandem back. Even though we like them, they were almost last. I think they were second last in save percentage last year. It just couldn't bring them back. So they chew on $1 million of Korpisalo. They get Ullmark brought in. It was a really nifty move. And I thought Boston did well on that deal too, because you got Korpisalo at $3 million. Now you're going to pay Swayman. Korpisalo can give you games. And I don't think he's a bad goaltender. I just think he didn't settle in and wasn't comfortable there. I think both organizations were comfortable with that move. I thought it was a really, really good move, though, for Ottawa.
All right, final note for you. I know in Calgary we've all got the Ginla goggles on. It's the storyline everyone's cheering for. It looks less and less likely he'll slide to 9, but then you never know. It is a crazy pull names out of a hat from 2 to 12 type draft. Is there anything you're rooting for tomorrow, whether it's trades, Ginla to Calgary, Ottawa to make a blockbuster? What would have you with the full popcorn meme going tomorrow night?
All of the above for what you just said. I mean, I want, and I kind of don't want much to happen because it means that I'm going to sit there like an idiot on free agency day and it'll be all speculation. What should they do? What should this team do? Instead of all this stuff happening because it's happening before. But that being said, I would love to see Tisha Ginla play for the Calgary Flames. Nothing would make me happier. I'm just scared that he just won't be available then. I'm hearing, honest to God, I talked to a scout yesterday. On their list he was 4. Yeah. On another list he was 5. I'd love to. I wanted him to be, hey, he's 11, so that Calgary can grab him at 9. You know what I mean? That's where. But everybody you talk to, this kid just continued to climb. Then you look at the dad and the DNA, and this kid's going to be a top 5, I think. Which, it's amazing for Jerome and his family and Tish. But, if Connie's trying to trade down, these teams probably are going to try and get a king's ransom out of him for Connie to go 4 spots or 5 spots up, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I would like to see a blockbuster trade. Anything the Leafs do, it just makes my life easier because we can talk about nauseum. I love anything that Calgary does because, again, come on, and we just break down what Connie's up to. I think Connie's done a great job. I'm 100% biased because I love the guy and I played with him, and we're close friends. But I think he's done. If you take a look at his body of work, some of the trades and some of the things that he inherited just, naturally on deals expiring, a vision for the organization, even just the Toffoli deal.
Yeah.
Getting ahead of something instead of it, being a hindrance for you. I like Tyler Toffoli, but, at some point the legs will drop off and you're going to be stuck with that. And they're already, they've already got a few contracts that they might be stuck with, moving forward. So, I think Connie's done a great job. Anything the Flames do, I'm always eyes on. I like the Markey trade because I think it gives a pathway for Dustin Wolf.
Yep.
it'd be interesting to see, because I just know that all these managers right now are wheeling and dealing. So it's almost like I wish I was a fly on the wall for 48 hours, just like listening. This is where
just ask Connie. He'd let you do that, right?
this is where you need spyware, like just
spyware. Okay,
you're like listening to these deals go down. You're just a fly on the wall. It'd be awesome. So,
all right. Well, and I agree with you with Connie. I mean, he was put in a spot that was not easy. He's made the right decisions in terms of not committing to guys longer in the tooth with the commitments they already have. They've got 6 firsts in the next 3 years. I mean, that's it for me. It's like, what do you get out of those 6? Do you find 2 stars? Is it 4 plumbers and 2 swings and misses? I mean, you can talk about a quicker turnaround if you find some stars here, and you're talking about a decade of darkness if you don't pull a star out of these 6.
Yeah. Well, I mean, drafting and developing, finding some of these players, finding some of the things that you need for your organization. Sometimes it is a crapshoot, but you got to trust your staff. You got to trust the guys that are, scouting for you. And that's where, honestly, Craig Conroy, you hear that he was in Florida the other day watching prospects at a Dan Milstein's camp or whatever it was. Yep. Like, managers put the work in. Like, it's not just worrying about, like, Connie's been putting the work in the last 2 months. His team hasn't been playing. He's not just sitting watching what we're watching on TV. This guy's been out there working, trying to pound the pavement to make his team better, to give himself a chance. So, I hope they end up getting the right players. I hope they end up finding, some free agent guys that can help their team. I think there's still trades available for the Flames and other teams to try and pick at the Flames. I would be shocked if teams weren't calling for like Rasmus Anderson. Like he's a right shot defenseman who can handle the puck. And
that's the one for me. If you want to go get Tej and he slides to 7, don't you just call Ottawa and make that happen? Like, there's 2 years left on Rasmus. It's pick 7. Maybe he doesn't slide there. Maybe Demidov does, or Caden Lindstrom, but someone that you're like, oh my God, like we got to. I mean, that would fascinate. I take it too much of your time, but yeah, like this, it all ties into this fascination around, names out of a hat from 2 to 12. We really don't know what's going to happen here.
Yeah, I can't wait. I actually thought the draft was tonight, so I was like, oh, this is exciting.
Damn it.
And I talked to somebody there. They're like, no, it's tomorrow, you idiot. And I was like, oh, okay. So I get my days are all mixed up. My kids are out of school, so I thought it was Friday today. So that's like
last day for us today, back at home. So I'm hearing about that. Okay, so let's just hypothetical. Let's just say you're in Vegas for work. You thought the draft was tonight. It's not till tomorrow night, and you got a free runway here. You don't have to do anything until 4 p.m. local time tomorrow. Where are you going in Vegas for a night out? Green light, Noodles.
Oof. So there's Delmonico Steakhouse at the Venetian.
Okay.
Unbelievable. You got to go there. But there is a vodka bar. So I don't know if you know this, but you can go in for an hour. You pay, and it's an ice bar. It's called an ice bar. So you put on a parka, a hat and gloves. They give you a cup made of ice, and then they just pour straight vodka in it. You sit in ice chairs. It's an ice bar, like a bar made of ice. I can't remember what hotels it's in. Like, Google it, ice bar.
Okay.
We always start our night there because you go in and you drink vodka for an hour, and then you start your night. It's unbelievable. I've got pictures of it. I wish I had. I don't have anything here that I could pull up.
I love it. I've got my mission. That's the starting point, and it's 42 outside, Noodles. You got to go to the ice bar, of course.
You're going to the ice bar. You're going to Delmonico's, and then you find one of those pool bars at Cosmopolitan. You go there. Can't remember the name of the. It's not Wet Republic. That's the other one. But you go to the pool bars where it's indoor, outdoor. You go inside for the air conditioning. You go outdoor. You watch people swim in the pool and jump in the pool and get drunk. So and the house music's going. You get a nice little table. You get a little bottle service. And so to me, it's ice bar, then Delmonico Steakhouse, then to
pool party.
Cosmo, Wynn, one of those that have the indoor outdoor pool.
All right, we'll report back next week. Thanks, buddy. Love the itinerary.
Enjoy.
Hey, guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to check out more of our content right here on the Flames Nation YouTube page. We had a bunch of great long-form interviews. You can check out some videos we've done as well outside of the studio. And, of course, if you want more writing or merchandise stuff, flamesnation.ca or nationgear.ca. Appreciate you watching.